Well, looks like Darksiders 3 has finally made its way out to the world thanks to Gunfire Games and THQ Nordic, and I personally couldn't be more excited. I've enjoyed the previous entries into the post-apocalyptic world of the Four Horsemen, and so far Darksiders 3 has not disappointed me. But this isn't a review. For that, you'll need to head over to the site and check out our full review of Darksiders 3. What we're here for today is performance, and to see how the latest entry into the series is across a variety of hardware. Style-wise, it retains the general look of the earlier entries, but has been beefed up a bit in the assets section, and given that the game is built on the Unreal 4 engine, we can already make a few assumptions on performance. But we're still going to drill down the usual game gamut and see how things shake out. But before we get started, we want to mention that the game does have a 60 FPS frame cap, and unfortunately, you can't turn it off in the game, but it is easy to circumvent through the INI file. So you just simply follow the directions on the screen. You go to your user, app data, local, Darksiders 3, save game, configure Windows No Editor, and open up the game user settings. Ensure that VSync is set to 0, and you need to change the frame rate limit from 0 to 999. Well, I guess really you could set whatever frame rate limit you want at this point. So now that you've unlocked the frame rate, but does it have any side effects? So far, no, we can't find any instance where the game glitches out, bugs out, nothing speeds up. Everything seems to be playing normal. I really think that they implemented the frame lock just for a smoothness factor. So more smooth versus more frames. So of course that this game does not have a built-in benchmark, so we had to set up a like-for-like run to, for consistency's sake, and that's what we did, and we used the data from 3-run set, and that's how we got our results. So as far as our two test systems here, we've got a Ryzen 7 1700 at 4 GHz with 16 GB of G-Skill Flare X DDR4 3200 on an MSI X-Power Gaming Titanium. And for Z370, which is our primary test bench in this, we've got an i5 8600K at 5 GHz, 16 gigs of Gale Evo X DDR4 3200 MHz, and that's on an EVGA Z370 classified K motherboard. Of course, we've got a list of graphics cards. If you want to see those more in detail, head over to the link in the description below, and we use the latest drivers for all of these testing. First thing we did, we took a look at scaling at 4K. What we do here is we go to 4K with a 2080 Ti on our i5 test bench, and we test the different settings. As far as like since this game doesn't have presets, we set everything to epic, high, medium, and low. Going from epic to medium gained some modest performance benefits, but going down to low netted us enormous benefits, but the game does look like swamp butt, so that's something to take in mind. I only recommend going to low is if you have to, and definitely do not go to low with the shadows. You'll really regret that one. Ryzen core scaling was very interesting in this game in the sense that it didn't. In fact, it had negative repercussions for scaling. In fact, going past 4 cores, 8 threads, 4 cores and 4 threads, going past that, everything went down on the 0.1% lows, which is really weird, but observing the game's behavior, it almost looked like it didn't know what to do with all the extra cores, and, well, Unreal Engine 4 isn't exactly a very well threaded engine. What about when you stack up the i5 versus the Ryzen 7? You can see here that there is quite a performance disparity between the two. Definitely a game that prefers the core clock. Yeah, clock speed is king over cores in this title, so you can see there it's a huge disparity at 1080p. Things do get better as you move up the resolution, but they never really get on parity. 1080p, well, you know what? If you're running at a 60 FPS cap lock, all of these cards will be fine. I mean, the 570 up through the 1060 will see a bit of a dip under that 60 FPS mark every now and then, but it's really not that noticeable. Going past that, you're going to get a locked 60 FPS at all settings, and you can definitely tell with the 2080 Ti there's a bit of a CPU bottleneck going on there when the minimum averages are on par with the 2080, and there's a good bump up from the 2070 to the 2080. So definitely a CPU limitation at there, even though the average FPS is 199 FPS. Moving up to 1440p, we see very similar numbers in these charts because we couldn't fit it all on the screen. The 0.1% lows and the 1% lows were left off, but you can see all those on the article if you want to follow that link in the description again. 4K sees a very similar story, and this game is actually really demanding at 4K. You know, the 1080 to 1440p, I expected to see a little bit better numbers at 4K def, So it's always interesting to see how a game that comes shipped with a frame rate lock performs when the cap is removed. After all, at 1080p with the lock on, you would be hard pressed to find a difference in performance across most of these cards. Take that off and watch GeForce scream past Radeon on every level. The same can be said for the CPU side, where the RTX 2080 Ti performs like an RTX 2070 when paired with an Ryzen 7 1700. But turn the FPS cap back on and you'll be unsure of which setup you're using, well at 1080p anyway. But the game's fills per second out of the box was pretty good. Something to note on 4K performance is that this game absolutely hammers everything hard. When I first started testing and seeing the 1080p and the 1440p numbers rolling in, all I could think was, how is DLSS really going to help this game? Then when I got to 4K testing, I figured it out real quick. But as with other RTX features, this one isn't showing its head just yet. So guys, if you'll excuse me, I've got to get back to finding a few more of these 7 deadly sins. This has been Keith with WCCF Tech TV. Make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell so that we don't miss you in the next one.